I used to pick up 12 inches and go into the bathroom and just read liner notes and credits. I went as far as reading matrix numbers of vinyl, knowing where they were pressed. I understand you can't do that today, but bring your phone into the bathroom and just read who made this, who recorded that, who's the engineer, who played guitar, you know, who mixed what. I think understanding how things are made, where they come from, having that passion is going to really, you know, it's going to reflect on the music you make. So I grew up the youngest of 6. My sister's the oldest. There's one sister and 5 of us, 5 brothers, so 6 total. And each of them had different styles. My sister was in like Boston, ELO, Blue Oyster Cult, you know, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So she was a little kind of progressive rocky, but not, you know. And then my other brother went into the Smiths, and, you know, Depeche Mode, and a lot of new wave, you know, OMD. My other brother's into, you know, hip hop at the time, you know, Slick Rick, you know, Run DMC, all that stuff. And another brother that was straight up into industrial, you know, Wax Tracks, Chicago, Ministry, Revolting Cocks, My Life with Throw Cold Cold. So I was surrounded by all that music, and the format that they bought in was vinyl. So when they left the house, they never took their vinyl, they left it. So I was just surrounded by a plethora of different forms of music, and that's what I learned from. But it was theirs, you know, because they would play it, even though I digested it and learned from it. When I first heard, it was a 12-inch, it was a bootleg, it was, one side was Trilogy, it's Hot, and the other side was Tyree Cooper, Acid Crash, right? And when I got that record and I played it in my mom's stereo had like a 8-track player too. When I heard Acid Crash and you hear those drums and that synth, that sound, boom, 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 and you just, I went ballistic. I was like, what is this? What is doing this? Who made this? How was it made? And this is mine. So exactly what that feeling, I looked at my siblings and my brothers, I was like, this is mine. You can't touch this. I'm gonna show you. Do you guys know what house music is? You know, and of course they did, but you know, obviously, you know, that was my soundprint. I said, this is mine for the rest of my life. I think I was the last, or one of the last of a breed of producers that came out of New York during, you know, when vinyl was still relevant, when, you know, pre our, you know, MP3 technology and what it is today. And so just growing up around people like Armand Van Helden, Sneak, and Todd, and Louie and Kenny, and you know, it was an honor to just learn from them and just get to experience that, or just actually go to Roger's house and hang out there. And at the time, he lived downstairs from Frankie Knuckles. Frankie Knuckles lived upstairs, and Frankie would just come down and say hi, hang out, and grab some coffee. And that's the first time I met Frankie. It wasn't at a club. It was actually, you know, he walked into Roger's house. So that stuff like that, it was, you know, really crazy, you know. Somebody told me not too long ago that, and it was someone that is really educated in music, and he has perfect pitch. He was like, Junior, you have a really, 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 really good ear. And how did that happen? I attribute the way I listen and hear is from actually DJing non-house records. So I would, before I really got even 2 1200s, I would take 2 different stereo sets. My mom's would have, I think she had one that, you know, one that had an 8-track player and another one that was like, you know, another interesting, but they both had pitches, like the pitch wheels. And I would mix different records from Latin records. My mother's Brazilian, so I'll mix samba records, and I'll mix rock records. My brothers and sisters had all these styles of records. So I would go, wait a minute, this song sounds a lot like this song without understanding keys. And that kind of trained my ear. And as I started to make music, I started playing keyboards. It was really easy for me to start mimicking synthesis, like Depeche Mode records. So I would learn from, you know, monophonic keyboards how to play certain lines. you know, and then I got started evolving that and then just literally teaching myself. I've always been a person of trial and error. I just learn. And so instinctually, I just figured out how to play. I'm not a virtuoso, but I can actually get on a keyboard and figure things out and make things sound good. For example, on this tutorial, I was making this track. I remembered going through a sound bank. There was a sound that I heard, a random sound, but in my head, after I did the bass line, I was like, wait a minute, this sound I think might work here. And it was just instinctually knowing, kind of, you know, in your head, pitch. It's like you ever mix records before you mix them in your head before you play them, and you just know it's gonna work. Yeah, so that's exactly how I trained my ears since I was 11 years old. I was lucky enough, because of my production and Roger and Oman and Sneak and everybody saw what I was doing music-wise, production-wise. Roger and Sneak asked me to be a part of this concept called the S-Men. And that was like literally my first gig internationally was in 1997, Tribal Gathering in London, and we opened for Kraftwerk. That was literally my first gig ever. So I was just like, this is crazy. And from then on, it's been a whirlwind, and I've been really lucky. Because they never treated me as like, here's this new kid. Yeah, I was a new kid, but they were confident enough in me, and they respected my talents enough to go, no, we're a part of this group. You are a part of this group, and we're treating you like you've been here forever. Yeah. You know, and so, yeah, it was just automatic. Well, it's funny because everything kind of comes full circle. Because myself, Roger, and Sneak, I flew to Ibiza, we sat in the studio, made about 5-6 records in like 2 days, 3 days. We're gonna finish an album, and we're planning on going on tour next year. So it's, you know, it's funny, after all this time, you know, things connect the dots again, you know. We all find each other and say, hey, let's do this. Because you gotta think about it, when we did the S-Men, it was 6 turntables and me bringing on tour a W30 keyboard, a Roland W30. And the only thing we had that we can reference to that was like the invisible scratch pickles. We had nothing to really reference that at that time. So it was pretty crazy to have 6 turntables and a sampler and all that, you know, in '97. The biggest change of everything is just straight up just technology. Just, I remember my first workstation was a Roland W30. The only reason I got it is because Armand Van Helden taught me it, and he had it. It had 8 outputs and only 2 banks of 7.4 seconds in each bank of sample time. So, you know, you're talking maybe 15, 16, almost 16 seconds, I think. That's all. So I would make entire records just with that. And you just, you know, you used what you had. And after that, my first computer was a Mac, a Performer. It was like beige, and my first DAW was Studio Vision Pro, opcode. And the only reason I got that is because I read an article with Trent Reznor that he made 9 Inch Nails records using Studio Vision. So I was like, okay, that dude is sick. I want to try that. So I did. I got Studio Vision Pro, and the first time I saw a waveform, I remember it was like, you know, when you go to the psychiatrist, they, you know, those ink blotches they put up, like, what does this look like to you? You know, and you're like, you know, that's some Freud thing. I was like, that's what a waveform looked like to me. It looked like just weird ink splattered on a screen, and I was just like, what is that? And you know, the evolution and the exponential evolution of technology to where we are now, where you would need, in order to make music, in my day, and I can't even imagine prior, you needed to really want to produce, because you either had to spend money or rent, you know, buying gear, which was not cheap, or you had to rent studio, which was not cheap as well. Now you just pick up a laptop, and the best studios in the world are inside of a laptop. Every plugin is there, every keyboard, every compressor, every component that you would see in a studio is now on a laptop. Came about sitting here in this room, and you know, people like Todd Terry would come over, Michael Moog was here all the time. I had just tons of friends and peers come over. And I'm always, you know, I wanted to do a project, I wanted to do an album. And then normally, you know, you start thinking of your influences, you start thinking about the things, you know, that are kind of not in your reach. You're like, oh man, Trevor Horn, this person, Prince, Kate Bush, Bjork, you know, all, you know, Nelly Hooper, all these things that are like inspired you, but technically they inspired you throughout your life, but my real inspiration to lead to that led me to house music was my mentors, which became my friends. And then you kind of take that for granted because you hang out with them all the time, break bread, talk about music, but then you really don't reflect about how much they really impacted you. And I did. I sat here, I'm like, wait a minute, you know, Todd, Kenny, Louie, Masters at Work, you know, Armand, that my friends still inspire me. They really, actually, really do. And so I really wanted just to focus and channel on them, on my peers, and say, I want to make a record and that pays homage to my friendship, all my friendships, and say, this is what influenced me making this album, is kind of almost being a kid again, you know? Me sitting down in the Strictly Rhythm offices and watching, you know, Kenny Rowland, the Burrell brothers, and all these people, you know, walk into the, you know, me sitting in the foyer just like spending 20 minutes, an hour waiting for one record. You know, that's what I wanted to capture. I think it's super important to share. I believe in paying it forward in some way, shape, or form, no matter what. And I think kids should learn from people they respect or admire, or even if they don't know me, I still have something to offer them. They could just really check me out and give me a chance to say, how does this person, how's his workflow is? And I think, you know, this is my first time doing a tutorial like this ever. And it was a great experience. And I think I still have a lot to show and give back and show people. So hopefully I get to do some others and dive into different production techniques and different things, maybe recording vocals, having vocalists here, or just different things. There's so much into production that you can do. And, you know, it's like, you know, you start peeling the onion, you know, as they say, and just dig deeper and deeper and deeper. We can, you know, learn a lot.